A default is obviously worst case scenario, but what are the other potential and probable outcomes here?
Yes. So I think one of the reasons why there's some nerves about what's going on is that there's a lack of clarity about the means of taking action on the debt ceiling, even if there's confidence that the U.S. avoids a default in the end. So there's four ways to take action on the debt ceiling. There's executive action. There's a negotiated solution between Republicans and Democrats. There is a way to bypass House Republicans in the Congress. And then there's a way just to put legislation on the floor in Congress, but in what's colloquially said, vote no, but hope yes. And so right now, after House Republicans passed the Limit Save Grow Act, a lot of focus is on a negotiated route. And so we're going to see McCarthy talk with Biden and Schumer and see if there's something that can go on. But if we get to a point where like negotiations aren't going anywhere, the exit date is nearing, we're going to revolve around these other options. So you're going to hear more talk about internal deliberation within the White House and the Treasury of whether there can be executive action taken to remove kind of the debt ceiling factor. There's going to be talk about something called a discharge petition, which is a way to kind of bypass House leadership and bring legislation to the floor if some House Republican moderates feel like McCarthy isn't able to deliver the votes. And then you could hear some things that say that McCarthy will bring something to the floor but not vote for it, and just hope that doing that it will raise the debt ceiling, but it won't endanger his job with something like a motion to vacate by Republicans. And so right now the focus is on negotiations, but it's important just to be aware of these other options as the negotiations move forward and whether they prove successful or whether they prove to be a failure, and what those options can mean and kind of the timing for that as the X date nears.
Let's say negotiations falter and they have to go to one of those other options. Is that a political loss for a specific person or party, or do voters really care how this gets done as long as it gets done and we don't default on our debt?
I don't think anyone has lost an election based on the debt ceiling. As much as people in DC malign it and say this is like an existential threat and this is the biggest political fight ever, it's hard for me to see that in 2023, which is still more than a year out from the election, that this will make a difference. But it does make a difference for someone like Kevin McCarthy if he can't be at the negotiating table. I think it is a little remarkable that between McCarthy and Biden, the two don't really talk much with each other. They don't have much of a relationship, but they have a lot in common. And one thing is that they're both perennially underestimated. And that's the case in DC for Biden, as it is for McCarthy, and how long he can be speaker. And another thing is that neither are really ideological people. Now, in a world where you could come to a deal with raising the debt ceiling and you wouldn't have any blowback from the base, both McCarthy and Biden would take that deal in a heartbeat. But the problem is that the rank and file from both sides want to fight as much as they want a negotiated outcome. And so if there is a situation where McCarthy just can't deliver the votes on his side, or he feels like there's career risk if he kind of creates too many concessions, it's going to be a big blow to his credibility as a leader if you have to do something like a discharge petition or bypass the traditional norms of legislating. And we saw a former speaker, John Boehner, kind of lose his power from failed debt ceiling negotiations. And so I believe that if politically this doesn't make a difference on the composition of the House, Senate, and White House in the 2024 election, if you don't come up with a negotiated solution, but you come up with something to raise the debt ceiling, it would be politically disastrous, I'd say, for someone like Kevin McCarthy.
A lot hinges on this for Kevin McCarthy, especially because he saw his speakership really hang in the balance there just a few months ago. And Ben, as this plays out, I hope you come back on and share your insights with us. Ben Colton, thanks for joining me.
WordPress made easy as